Remember the iconic catchphrases from television's golden age? They made millions laugh, but behind those comforting smiles, America's favorite sitcom stars were hiding exhausting double lives. In an era that demanded secrecy, these legendary actors used their famous jokes as a tragic shield to survive. Today, we'll uncover the heartbreaking double meanings behind 6 classic catchphrases. Subscribe now to honor their true stories and drop a comment below, letting us know what time you are watching this video. The Velvet Mask of America's Favorite Dad. For generations of Americans who grew up in the 1970s, Robert Reed wasn't just an actor. He was Mike Brady. As the patriarch of the Brady Bunch, he embodied the ultimate American father, patient, wise, and deeply reassuring. Every Friday night, amid the simulated chaos of suburban life, he would step into the living room and deliver his trademark observation: "Something is wrong here. This family has a problem." Back then, we laughed, knowing the problem was just spilled milk or sibling rivalry. But off-screen, Reed, born John Robert Wrights Jr. in Illinois, was carrying a heavy, silent burden. A classically trained stage actor, he constantly clashed with creator Sherwood Schwartz, fighting to give the sitcom more grit and less sugary perfection. His TV wife, Florence Henderson, later expressed deep compassion for him. She knew the agonizing toll of his double life. In an era that demanded the closet, Reed kept his homosexuality fiercely guarded. When he passed away in 1992 at age 59, the public cause was listed as colon lymphoma. However, posthumous reports revealed that HIV infection was a significant contributing factor. For those of us who invited Mike Brady into our homes, this tragic reality changed everything. It reframed a beloved childhood memory. Now, when we look back, that iconic line, "This family has a problem," no longer feels like a sitcom setup. It feels like a coded ache from a lonely man. The fabricated dossier of Raymond Burr. For millions of Americans during the 1950s and 60s, Raymond Burr was the very definition of truth and justice. As TV's legendary defense attorney Perry Mason, and later as the relentless detective Ironside Burr, commanded the screen. With a booming voice and unyielding legal precision, his famous courtroom cry, "Objection," assured viewers that the truth would always emerge victorious by the final act. But off-camera, Burr was managing a highly confidential case file, his own life. Born in British Columbia in 1917, he constructed an elaborate biographical cover story that hardened into accepted public fact. Biographer Michael Seth Starr later exposed the heartbreaking truth: Burr had completely invented stories of a deceased wife and a tragic son who never existed, using fictional ghosts to shield his privacy. In a conservative era that could destroy a leading man's career overnight, Burr was fiercely protecting a deep secret. The real anchor of his life was Robert Benavides, his devoted partner for decades, who met Burr during the Perry Mason years and eventually inherited his estate. Even notorious Hollywood gossip columnist Hedda Hopper helped protect the secret. Burr worked through severe physical pain near the end, passing away in 1993. Knowing this, his iconic demands for truth take on a bittersweet, devastating resonance. The audience heard unwavering certainty. In reality, Raymond Burr was just desperately protecting the one case file that mattered most. Dick Sargent's magic metaphor of passing. To anyone watching late-night reruns of Bewitched, Dick Sargent was Darren Stevens, the exasperated mortal husband trying to manage a magical wife. From 1969 to 1972, his recurring plea to Samantha became a staple of American sitcom humor. "Stop using your powers. Act normal. Don't make the neighbors notice." While audiences laughed at the domestic chaos, the underlying metaphor was eerily accurate to Sargent's own life. Born Richard Cox in Carmel, California in 1930, his public image was fiercely engineered by Hollywood to look conventionally straight. Studio publicists went so far as to invent a non-existent failed marriage and orchestrate magazine spreads pairing him with popular actresses just to close the file on his private life. But Sargent was living a reality entirely detached from the fantasy being sold to suburban America. His on-screen demands for Samantha to act normal mirrored his own exhausting daily struggle to pass in a deeply homophobic industry. The breakthrough came in 1991. When a tabloid threatened to out him, Sargent chose courage over concealment. On National Coming Out Day, October 11, 1991, he proudly declared his truth, later serving as a Pride Grand Marshal alongside his supportive TV wife, Elizabeth Montgomery. Sargent admitted that living authentically brought him more joy than any acting gig ever could. His iconic lines were never just about witchcraft. They were a plea to survive in a world terrified of differences. The last big surprise of Jim Nabors. For millions of Americans in the 1960s, Jim Nabors was the embodiment of pure, sweet-natured country innocence. As the lovable, bumbling gas station attendant Gomer Pyle on The Andy Griffith Show, and later on his hit spin-off Gomer Pyle USMC Neighbors, turned small-town astonishment into unforgettable TV catchphrases, golly, Shazam, and most famously, surprise, surprise, surprise. While the lines were written for sitcom comedy history, eventually turned them into a profound real-world irony. Born in Sylacauga, Alabama in 1930, Nabors' private life was an open secret within Hollywood circles. But to the broader American public who adored his gentle, folksy persona, the truth remained completely hidden for decades. The gap between his public character and private reality is what makes his story so poignant. Nabors lived quietly, shielding a 38-year relationship with Stan Cadwallader, a former Honolulu firefighter he met in 1975. Finally, in 2013, at the age of 82, Nabors chose honesty over concealment. Following the legalization of same-sex marriage, the couple wed in Seattle, with Nabors quietly noting it was time to secure the legal rights they had long been denied. When we look back now, his legendary catchphrase takes on a whole new meaning. Surprise, surprise, surprise was once just the sound of a country boy's innocence. In the end, it became the exact reaction of the public he loved so much. Paul Lynde, the king of the center square. For anyone who tuned in to daytime television in the late 1960s and 70s, Paul Lynde was the undisputed king of sharp-tongued wit. Sitting prominently in the center square of Hollywood squares and regularly stealing scenes as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched, Lynde made comedy look effortless. When host Peter Marshall famously asked him, "Who's generally better looking, a fairy or a pixie?" Lynde dropped his voice, smirked, and shot back, "Looks aren't everything." While the studio audience roared at the punchline, Lynde was delivering a masterclass in what we now call coding. Born in Mount Vernon, Ohio in 1926, he occupied a unique tier in television history because his campy, flamboyant subtext was entirely intentional. Hollywood writers tailored material specifically to his persona, and Lynde delivered it with full awareness. He frequently slipped barely concealed references right past the network censors, leaving audiences laughing at lines like, "How many men are on a hockey team? Oh, about half." Off-camera, Lynde's sexuality was an open secret within Hollywood circles, though the conservative industry of the era never allowed him to speak his truth plainly. When we replay his classic television clips today, those biting wisecracks take on a brilliant, defiant resonance. Looks aren't everything wasn't just a clever daytime TV joke. It was the sound of a comedic pioneer refusing to be entirely silenced. The bold, flamboyant defiance of Charles Nelson Reilly. For daytime television viewers in the 1970s, Match Game was an absolute must-watch, and Charles Nelson Reilly was its glittering centerpiece. With his trademark oversized glasses, colorful ascots, and razor-sharp wit, Reilly didn't wait for writers to hand him a punchline. Instead, he would suddenly drop his voice to a gravelly baritone jab the air and introduce himself as Chuck, the absurdly masculine alter ego he insisted was very butch. The celebrity panel roared because the parody was completely transparent. Born in the South Bronx in 1931, Riley was a brilliant, classically trained actor who had already won a Tony Award for how to succeed in business without really trying. Yet early in his career, an NBC executive bluntly told him, "They don't let queers on TV." Riley's response: he appeared on television roughly 2,000 times, making that bigoted prohibition look utterly ridiculous. He used self-designed mockery as armor, pushing 1970s broadcast standards with his flamboyant camp style. Remarkably, Riley later noted, he never purposely hid being gay from anyone. He simply lived his life sharing a Beverly Hills home with his longtime partner Patrick Hughes III. When we look back at his legendary Chuck routine today, the joke carries a deeper meaning. America heard a hilarious parody of manhood. In reality, Charles Nelson Riley was measuring the vast distance between the character television demanded and the authentic man already sitting in the chair. Hayden Rourke, guarding the secret outside the frame. For 5 seasons on I Dream of Jeannie Hayden, Rourke played Dr. Alfred Bellows, the perpetually bewildered NASA psychiatrist. Week after week, he desperately tried to prove that something bizarre was happening around Major Nelson. Dr. Bellows was always suspicious, always circling the truth, and always delivering variations of his signature frustrated observation. "I am convinced something very strange is going on here." While audiences laughed at his misguided theories, that repetitive setup takes on a much richer, poignant meaning when you look behind the scenes. Born William Henry Rourke in Brooklyn in 1910, the actor was guarding a deeply private life of his own. Long before the sitcom premiered in 1965, Rourke met director Eustace Addis while working on a project in 1953. The two men became life partners, remaining devotedly together for roughly 40 years. Though Rourke never made a public declaration, his reality was an open secret among close friends. Co-star Barbara Eden later confirmed in her memoir that Rourke was gay, fondly recalling hosting gatherings at the home he shared with Addis. Knowing this, his iconic lines take on an uncanny, bittersweet resonance. On television, he spent years playing a man frantically trying to expose someone else's hidden secret, all while succeeding with immense grace, elegance, and dignity at keeping his own beautiful reality completely out of the frame. Jonathan Harris, the theatrical armor of Dr. Smith. For Americans who grew up watching 1960s television, Jonathan Harris was the unforgettable Dr. Zachary Smith on Lost in Space. He didn't hide behind normalcy. He hid behind fabulous excess, turning cowardice, vanity, and theatrical suffering into a legendary performance that completely stole the show. He delighted viewers with his dramatic operatic cries, "Oh, the pain," and "Never fear, Smith is here, you bubble-headed booby." Born Jonathan Kasuchin in the Bronx in 1914, Harris amassed hundreds of screen credits, but his campy sci-fi villain cemented his legacy. Today, Dr. Smith stands out as one of classic Hollywood's most flamboyantly coded figures. Harris ran in the same social circles as Paul Lynde and Charles Nelson Riley, and his sexuality was widely regarded as an industry-open secret. Yet Harris never offered a public confirmation during his life. That historical nuance is precisely what makes his performance so fascinating. In a conservative network era where open truth meant immediate cancellation, persona became protection. The broader American audience heard a hilariously fussy camp villain. The industry understood the rest. When we replay those classic clips today, his signature phrase, "Never fear, Smith is here," takes on a brilliant new depth. It wasn't just a comic self-announcement, it was a masterclass in a performer transforming pure style into cover, and that cover into television legend. Thank you for watching today's video. If you find the content interesting or useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue creating better quality content every day. What do you think about today's topic? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. See you in the next video. Have a great day.